Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I want to start today's session by asking you to do something that sounds incredibly simple on the surface, but I've actually found it to be pretty much neurologically impossible.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
Wherever you are, assuming you aren't, operating heavy machinery or merging onto a highway, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine nothing.
Ah, the classic philosophical trap to kick things off.
It is a trap, isn't it? Because I'm trying to do it right now, and I'm just failing miserably. The first thing I picture is a black room.
Avoid, yeah.
Or maybe deep space, but with all the stars taken out. But
Mhm.
that's not nothing, is it? That's blackness. That's space. It's still something.
It has dimensions.
Exactly. Even a vacuum in physics has a wear.
Yeah.
Has properties. It's a container.
Precisely. You're picturing a canvas that's just waiting to be painted on. But the human brain, which is, it's wired entirely for sensory input and spatial navigation, it just really struggles to conceptualize true
It
non-existence.
feels like it breaks the machine.
It does. We almost always default to this sort of cinematic idea of avoid dark, quiet, empty space. But true nothingness, that's a concept that our cognitive machinery just isn't built for.
And that right there is the hook for today's dive.
Yeah.
Because that modern, almost Hollywood version of nothing, that
Yeah.
empty black box, that is absolutely not what the Norse myths are talking about.
Not even close.
When we look at the source material for today, and we're talking specifically about Ginnungagap, the architecture of Norse creation, pulling from the Voluspa in the Poetic Edda and Snorri's Gylfaginning, we find out that the Norse nothing was. Well, it was heavy, it had weight, it had an architecture.
It wasn't an absence of things. It was a presence of potential. And it was a very volatile, very dangerous potential.
So today we're going to unpack that volatility. We're going to look at a worldview where creation isn't, some benevolent act of intelligent design, but a violent chemical accident.
An accident that then requires constant, brutal maintenance to keep from collapsing back into the slurry it came from. It's an incredibly anxious worldview when you get down to it.
So let's get our bearings. We're diving into the deep end of Norse cosmology. We're relying heavily on two main texts, but primarily on the work of Snorri Sturluson. And I feel like before we take his word as gospel, we really need to put a massive asterisk next to his name, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. And this is a point of contention for scholars to this day. You have to remember the context. Snorri was writing in 13th century Iceland.
Right, so well after the conversion to Christianity.
Miles after. He was a politician, a poet, a Christian scholar. He wasn't some Viking Age pagan priest recording scripture as it was being revealed. He was an antiquarian.
Yep.
He was looking back at these stories that had been oral traditions for centuries, and he was trying to save them from being completely forgotten.
But he had an agenda, didn't he? He wasn't just a stenographer taking dictation.
Right. He's trying to systematize poetry that was never ever meant to be a textbook. The original poems, like the Voluspa, the Prophecy of the Seeress, they're dreamlike. They're not linear.
They jump around.
They jump around, they rely on kennings, they assume the listener already knows the cast of characters. Snorri comes along with a very medieval, very scholastic mindset, and he tries to force this fever dream into a logical timeline. He's trying to make it make sense to a Christian audience, in part by framing it as a sort of flawed prehistory.
So we have to read between the lines. We're looking for the places where the raw, jagged, pagan myth kind of pokes through Snorri's polished Christian narrative.
That's the game, exactly. And the Voluspa, the older source, it retains this haunting ambiguity right from the very start. There's that famous stanza, Arvaralda ar Ymir bigi.
In the beginning of time, where Ymir dwelt.
Or built or settled. The translation's a bit tricky. Bigi has this sense of constructing or inhabiting. But what's fascinating is that immediately after establishing this one single presence, Ymir, the text just pivots to a long list of negations.
It defines the world by what wasn't there.
Exactly. No sand, no sea, no cool waves, no earth below, no sky above. It's this incredible litany of absence.
It's a laundry list of missing items. But what strikes me is that it's not just physical furniture that's missing from the cosmic house. It's the conceptual frameworks. There's no moral order. There's no north or south in a meaningful magnetic sense. It's just orientationless.
And crucially, there is no time. That is the hardest part for us to really get our heads around. This is a state of pure suspension. No death, because nothing has ever lived. No history, because no events have ever happened. There's just Ginnungagap.
Okay, let's drill down on that word. Ginnungagap. We usually see it translated as the yawning void, which I have to be honest sounds a bit sleepy, a bit boring.
It does, but yawning here is the key, and it's a very active word. Think about the physical act of yawning. It's an opening of the mouth, an expansion. A vacuum is static. A yawn is a muscular action.
That's a stretching.
It's a stretching. But the etymology is even richer. The prefix "jin" is really powerful. It's linked to words that mean magical or deceptive or charged with power. It appears in other words like Jin region, which refers to the supreme magical powers of the gods themselves.
So it's not the empty void. It's more like the magical, charged, expanding abyss.
I personally prefer the interpretation of something like the pregnant silence. It's a silence that is just screaming to be broken.
That brings up a good point. In the outline, you differentiate between modern chaos and Norse chaos. When we say chaos today, we think of a riot. You know, noise, confusion, entropy, things flying apart.
A toddler's birthday party.
Exactly. That is active chaos, a swirling mess. But Ginnungagap is different.
It is. It's neutral potential. It's not hostile. It's not swirling. It's a state of pure, potent emptiness. Its primary role in the beginning is to act as a buffer zone.
Okay, the spatial function. It separates the opposites.
Think of it as a cosmic laboratory bench. If you have two highly reactive chemicals, you don't store them in the same jar. You keep them apart until you're ready. Ginnungagap is that sterile clean room between the reagents.
I love that image, a sterile lab bench. Because you absolutely need a clean, empty surface if you're going to mix volatile chemicals without blowing up the whole lab.
And that's exactly what this cosmology describes. It's not a story of a god snapping his fingers and saying, "Let there be light." It's a story of thermodynamics and chemistry.
And the void, Ginnungagap, creates the necessary distance for that reaction to happen in a somewhat controlled way.
It creates the space for them to bleed into each other slowly, rather than just annihilating each other in a flash. And here's a detail from a deep reading that often gets missed. Ginnungagap doesn't go away.
Wait, really? I always assumed that once they built the world, the void was just, filled in.
No, that's the modern assumption. The texts imply that the worlds Asgard, Midgard, all of them, are suspended within Ginnungagap. We didn't fill in the hole, we just built a very precarious bridge across it.
So the void is still there, underneath the floorboards of reality.
It's between the worlds. It's the space you cross when you go from one realm to another. The foundation of the Norse universe is not bedrock, it's suspension.
Wow. That adds a whole layer of deep anxiety to the entire worldview. It's like finding out your house is built over a sinkhole that never actually closed.
Anxiety is absolutely the correct word. The Norse world is fundamentally fragile. It's a temporary exception to the overwhelming rule of nothingness.
Okay, so we have the lab bench, the charged yawning void. Now we need the reagents, the actual ingredients. And we have the two polar realms, Niflheim to the north and Muspelheim to the south.
Fire and ice.
It sounds so cliche now because of modern fantasy. I mean, Game of Thrones has made A Song of Ice and Fire feel like a marketing trope. But let's look at the specific chemistry here, because the Norse texts are weirdly specific about the properties of these realms. Niflheim isn't just cold.
No, not at all. Niflheim is primordial. It's described as a realm of mist, absolute darkness, and a deep, penetrating dampness. It is the realm of the solid, of stasis.
So things in Niflheim don't change.
They are frozen in a perpetual now. But the most specific detail Snorri gives us, the one that really gets the whole process started, is the rivers, the Elviger.
The ice waves.
Yes. And these aren't rivers of pure fresh water. The text is very clear that they contain ether.
Ether, which translates to poison. Venom.
Both. It's a really complex word. It can mean venom, like from a snake, but it can also mean yeast, or the bitter cold itself. And this is where the philology gets fascinating, and we have to kind of step into an ancient alchemical mindset.
Because in the modern mind, venom and yeast are totally different things. One kills you, one makes bread rise.
But in an older biological understanding, they are both seen as agents of fermentation. They are active, transformative substances.
Fermentation is basically controlled rot, right? It's change, decomposition.
Exactly. Itri is a substance that corrodes, that breaks things down. Venom breaks down blood and tissue. Yeast breaks down sugar. So the primordial waters of creation are not clear and pure. They are a toxic, fermenting, yeasty slurry.
That is a profoundly disgusting and powerful image. The fountain of origin for all life is a river of toxic sludge.
And as this sludge flows out of Niflheim, it hits the cold of the void and it hardens. It acts like lava cooling. Snorri describes layer upon layer of this toxic ice, this rime, building up and pushing south into Ginnungagap. It represents absolute, unmoving inertia.
Okay, so that's the north. Then we look south. Muspelheim.
Pure energy. Fire, sparks, lava, intense heat. But again, like Niflheim, it's undirected. It's not a conscious force. It's just radiation. It's a physical property of the universe.
And there's a figure there, isn't there? Surt.
Surt is there. He's the guardian, holding a flaming sword that shines brighter than the sun. But in the creation era, he's passive. He's a fixture, a sentinel.
He doesn't swing the sword yet.
Not yet. He represents the potential for destruction that is just waiting for the end of time. For now, Muspelheim is just the heat source, the furnace.
So we have the setup. Stasis mixed with a fermenting agent on one side, pure raw energy and heat on the other, and the magical empty void in the middle.
And then physics takes over. No god commands it. No divine will is exerted. The heat simply radiates north into the void. The rime expands south into the void. They meet in the middle of Ginnungagap.
The warm breeze from the south hits the toxic yeast-filled ice from the north.
And it melts. That is the miracle of Norse creation. A phase change. A simple physical process. Solid to liquid.
It feels so stark, so impersonal. There's no intention, there's no love or thought involved in this first moment of life.
That's the point. And that's what makes it so different from, say, the Genesis account. Life creates itself out of a physical inevitability. Opposites cannot remain separate in a shared space forever. They will interact. And the byproduct of that interaction, the yeast of the venom activating in the heat, is life.
So life is basically the mold growing on the cosmic sandwich.
In a way, yes. It is an accidental byproduct of these two immense impersonal forces trying to cancel each other out. And what emerges from this melting, dripping, venomous sludge?
Ymir, the first being.
Ymir, a giant. But we have to be careful with that word giant. He's not the fee-fi-fo-fum type. He is the ancestor of the Jutner. He is a being of pure, unrefined biological mass.
Is he conscious? Does he have personality? Does he do anything?
The texts don't really give him one. He is pre-moral. He isn't evil, but he is hostile in the same way that a hurricane or a plague is hostile. He's raw, untamed nature. And because he is the only being, he faces a bit of a reproductive crisis.
Right. This is the part of the story that usually gets a laugh when people first hear it. But I want to understand the symbolism because it's just so bizarre. Ymir falls asleep. He sweats.
He sweats, and from the sweat in his left armpit, a male and a female giant grow. And then his legs. Well, his two legs have a child together, a six-headed son.
It's grotesque.
It is grotesque, yes, but it is symbolically very dense. This is asexual reproduction. It represents uncontrolled, undirected proliferation. Think of a cancer cell or bacteria in a petri dish. It just divides and conquers.
It doesn't require a partner, doesn't require a relationship or will or consent. It just requires mass and sustenance.
Precisely, and this is the core of what the giants represent in Norse myth. They are this unchecked, cancerous growth. If left alone, they would simply fill the entire void with more and more of themselves, choking out any possibility of structure or order.
That's why they're the enemies of the gods.
Yeah.
Not because they are bad guys with twirling mustaches, but because they are entropy. They are growth without structure, without purpose.
They are the universe just mindlessly expanding.
But Ymir isn't the only thing that forms from the melting ice. There's a second being, right?
Yes. As the rime continues to drip, we also get Auahumla, the primeval cow.
I have to ask, why a cow? Of all the cosmic entities they could have imagined, dragons, wolves, great eagles, why is the second being a cow?
You have to look at the culture that's telling the story. For the Germanic and Norse peoples, for any pastoral society really, the cow was the absolute cornerstone of survival. A cow is a magical creature if you think about it. It turns grass, which humans can't eat, into milk, butter, and cheese, which we can.
It's a converter of inedible life into edible life.
Exactly. Milk is this life-giving fluid, so Ahumla represents immediate life-sustaining nourishment. And her first job is to feed the Chaos Giant. 4 rivers of milk flow from her udders to sustain Ymir.
So the Chaos Giant is surviving on the milk of this cosmic cow. But the cow herself needs to eat too, and there's no grass.
And this is my favorite image in the entire creation mythos. There is no grass, there's only the ice. So what does she do? She licks the rhinestones, the salty ice blocks.
Salt. That feels like a really key detail. It's not just frozen water, it's salty ice.
Salt is a fascinating substance, symbolically. Salt preserves meat, it stops rot and decay, it holds back the chaos of decomposition. But salt is also a purifier, and in this case it reveals. As Ahumla licks the ice, she isn't just eating for sustenance, she is excavating.
It's cosmic archaeology.
It is. She is uncovering something that was already there, hidden within the ice. On the first day of her licking, she frees a man's hair.
Just the hair.
On the second day, she licks more, and his whole head appears. And on the third day, the entire being emerges from the ice. His name is Buri.
This feels completely different from Ymir's birth. Ymir came from a chemical reaction, poison and heat. Buri comes from excavation, from being uncovered.
And that's the symbolic difference. Buri represents latent order. The implication is that structure, form, and purpose were hidden inside the chaos all along, just waiting to be found. Buri is the ancestor of the gods.
So you have these two lines of beings starting simultaneously. Ymir, born of chaotic reaction, who represents uncontrolled growth, and Buri, revealed through patient effort, who represents inherent structure.
Chaos and order, born at the same time from the same substance.
Buri then has a son, Bor. The text is a bit vague on how maybe more asexual reproduction, or maybe the poets just skip that part as unimportant. But Bor needs a wife to continue the line. And this is where the genealogy gets really interesting and complicated.
Because there are no women in the god line yet. There are only giantesses.
So he has to cross the aisle, so to speak. Bor marries Besla, who is a giantess, a daughter of the frost giants.
This is the detail that, for me, changes how you have to view the entire Norse pantheon. Odin and his brothers Vili and Ve, the first beings we can really call gods, are not purebloods.
Not at all. They're half giant.
They're mixed-race beings. They contain the very chaos they are destined to fight against. Their blood is a mixture of order and entropy.
Which explains so much about Odin's personality later in the myths. He's the god of wisdom, poetry, and order, but he's also frantic, obsessive, violent, and sometimes deeply cruel. He has the Eater in his blood.
It creates a fundamental paradox. The gods are the only things standing between the ordered worlds and total chaos, but they themselves are born of that chaos. They understand it because it's part of them.
And this brings us to the first moment of true intentionality in the universe.
Yes, a pivotal shift. Up until this moment, everything has been passive. The ice just melts. Ymir just sleeps and sweats. The cow just licks. It's all instinct and physics. But Odin and his brothers, they make a conscious choice.
They assess the situation.
They look at this endless void. They look at Ymir, this massive, sweating, mindlessly multiplying, fleshy mound, and they decide, together, this cannot continue. They introduce will into the universe for the very first time.
And their very first act of will is a murder.
It is. A deicide, in a way. They attack their own ancestor, Ymir. They kill him. And the text describes a cataclysm. The blood that rushes from Ymir's wounds is so voluminous it creates a flood.
A flood of blood.
A flood of blood that drowns the entire race of frost giants. It's a genocide, a complete reset.
A purging of the board.
It is, except for one family. A giant named Bergelmir and his wife escape on a lure, which might mean a hollowed-out log or even a coffin. They survive, which ensures the feud between gods and giants will last for the rest of time.
Let's pause on the morality here for a second because it's brutal. Why is violence the foundation of the world? Why couldn't they just, build their own house in a quiet corner of the void and leave Ymir alone?
Because Ymir represents that formlessness. He represents the uncontrolled, cancerous growth we talked about. You cannot build a house without clearing the forest and cutting down the trees. You can't make a sculpture without chipping away at the raw stone.
So order requires the violation of a pre-existing state. You have to kill the natural state of chaos to build a civilized state of order.
Exactly. To build a cosmos, a word which itself implies order and structure, you have to destroy the chaos that preceded it. It is a brutal and perhaps deeply realistic lesson. Creation is inherently an act of destruction. You cannot have one without the other.
So Ymir is dead. His colossal corpse is now floating in the middle of Ginnungagap. And the three brothers decide to recycle. They become cosmic architects.
Anatomy becomes geography. And this isn't just a pretty metaphor in the story, it is a literal transmutation in the mythic logic. They drag the body into the middle of the void and they start taking it apart piece by piece.
Let's walk through the recycling process because the specificity is just incredible. They take his flesh.
That becomes the earth. The soil, the mud, the clay, the soft matter of the world.
His bones.
They break them and pile them up to make the mountains and the cliffs. The structural hard elements of the landscape are made of shattered bone.
His teeth.
They shatter his teeth and sprinkle them around to become stones, gravel, and scree. All the broken, sharp bits of the world, even the smaller fragments of his bones, become the boulders.
What about the blood? the blood that caused the flood.
They gather that up and use it to form the sea. They encircle the land with it. So when you look at the ocean, you are literally looking at the blood of the first victim. It surrounds us, constantly threatening to rise up and swallow the land again.
The skull.
This is maybe the most evocative image of all. They lift his massive skull and they arch it over the earth to create the sky, the firmament.
So when a Viking looked up at the sky, he wasn't looking at space or an atmosphere. He was looking at the inside of a cranial cavity.
And the clouds. Those were Ymir's brains. They scooped them out and threw them into the air to drift inside the skull sky.
Drifting clouds like wandering thoughts. The poetic connection is right there. It connects the meteorological to the psychological. It's beautiful, but also deeply, deeply unsettling.
It is. But think about the core horror of it. The world is a corpse. We are all parasites living on a dead giant. It reinforces that idea that matter is never new. It's just rearranged dead matter. Life feeds on death.
And then they build a wall. I almost forgot. It's eyebrows.
Yes. The bristly eyebrows become the fortification for Midgard Middle-earth, the enclosure meant for humans. It's a wall that separates our ordered world from Utgard, the outer world where the surviving giants still live. We literally live inside a protective ring of hair.
So now they have spatial order. There's an up and a down, an inside and an outside. Before this, north meant nothing. Now north is a direction relative to the position of the skull. But they're still missing something crucial. The world is built, but it's dark. And it's completely still.
They need temporal order. They need time.
How do you build time out of a corpse?
You don't. For that, you need fire. The gods reach back into Muspelheim, that southern realm of heat, and they snatch embers and sparks. They place them inside the skull sky to create the sun, the moon, and all the stars.
But just placing lights in the sky isn't enough. A static light bulb doesn't create time.
No, motion creates time. So they build chariots for the sun and moon. They set these orbs on a path, a course to run. And the moment the sun moves 1 inch across the sky, time begins. Day follows night. Winter follows summer. The clock starts ticking.
This is a profound philosophical point you raised in the notes. You said, time enables memory and anticipation.
Think about it. If nothing ever changes, if the sun never moves, you can't remember before. You have no reference point. If nothing moves, you can't anticipate later. By starting with the cosmic clock, the gods created the possibility of history. They created the possibility of narrative itself.
You can't have a story without a then what happened.
Exactly. But by creating time, by creating this system of cause and effect, they also unleashed something else, something that, it turns out, even they couldn't control.
Fate. Weird.
Weird, the inescapable web of cause and effect.
So did the gods create fate? Are they the authors of destiny?
No, and this is a crucial distinction from most monotheistic religions. In Christianity or Islam, God dictates the plan. God is the author. In Norse myth, fate emerges from the machinery of the universe that the gods set in motion. The Norns, the weavers of fate, appear after the order is established, and they set up their loom at the base of the world tree.
So the gods built the theater, turned on the lights, and started the play. But they don't have the script.
They have hints. They get prophecies. Odin, especially, is obsessed with trying to read the script, but they are just as subject to the laws of cause and effect as everyone else. If Odin breaks an oath, he suffers the consequences. He is not above the system. He is just the manager of it.
That brings us to ethics. We said in the beginning there was no moral order in the void. So where does good and evil come from in this worldview?
It comes from the wall. It comes from the structure they built. In this way of thinking, good is anything that maintains the integrity of Midgard and the cosmos, anything that strengthens the walls and holds society together.
And evil is anything that tries to dissolve it all back into chaos.
Exactly. So morality is fundamentally structural. Keeping your word, your oath, is good because oaths are the mortar that holds the social structure together.
And lying is bad because it erodes trust. And without trust, the whole social order collapses back into the war of all against all, back to the law of the giants.
It makes morality feel very desperate, doesn't it? It's not about being nice for the sake of being nice. It's about collective survival.
It's about frantically patching the leaks in the dam. Every lie is another crack in that wall made of eyebrows.
That's a great way to put it.
We're nearing the end of our deep dive here, and we have to address the elephant, or maybe the giant in the room. We've built this incredible, complex world. We have a sun, a moon, earth, humans, but it's not safe, is it? It's not a happily ever after.
Never. Not for a second. And that is the tragedy, and in a strange way, the beauty of it. Ginnungagap is still there between the worlds. Niflheim is still freezing at the northern edge, Muspelheim is still burning in the south, and the giants are out there, constantly banging on the eyebrow wall, looking for a way in.
So the gods aren't omnipotent rulers sitting on a golden cloud detached from everything. They are cosmic janitors. They are maintenance workers.
They are holding back the dam with their bare hands. They are constantly fighting a defensive war against entropy, chaos, and time. And the most poignant part of their story is that they know, with absolute certainty, that they will eventually lose.
Ragnarok.
The twilight of the gods, the destiny of the powers, and if you look closely, you see the chemistry of creation come full circle. How did the world start?
Fire met ice in the void.
And how does it end? Surt finally comes from the south with his all-consuming fire. The frost giants finally break through from the north with their world-ending ice.
The original ingredients come back to reclaim the product.
The tension that created the world finally snaps, the dam breaks, the universe is cyclical. The Norse were, if nothing else, realists. They looked at the world around them and saw that winter always conquers summer, that night always conquers day. Why should the entire universe be exempt from that cycle?
It's a heavy worldview. It basically says that order is a temporary, fragile anomaly in an ocean of chaos.
But that's what makes the order so precious. If you know for a fact that the house is going to burn down eventually, the dinner party you're having inside right now becomes so much more important. The warmth of the fire is valuable because you know the cold is waiting just outside the door.
I want to leave our listeners with a thought that has been nagging at me since we talked about the violent killing of Ymir. We established that for the Norse worldview, creation absolutely required destruction. You couldn't have the mountains without breaking the bones.
A zero-sum game of existence. To make something, you must unmake something else.
So here's the question for you to ponder. If the physical world is literally made from the body of a primal victim, and if every act of divine creation is an act of violence against the formless, does that imply that our creativity is also inherently destructive?
That is a very dangerous and very modern question to ask of an old text.
But think about it. When we build a city, we destroy a landscape. When we write an official history, we destroy the silence. And in doing so, we often destroy all the alternative stories that could have been told. When we invent a new technology, we destroy the way of life that existed before it.
We are mimicking the gods. We are carving our own little Midgard out of the raw material around us, building our own eyebrow walls.
So as we build our world, are we the heroes of our own story? Or are we just the butchers, swinging the hammer, recycling the corpse of what came before, and just hoping the wall holds for one more day?
I suppose that depends entirely on which side of the wall you're standing on.
Something to chew on. Thanks for going deep with us today.
Keep an eye on the horizon.
And watch out for the void. We'll see you in the next deep dive.